Hi everyone, sorry not to be available to join you in person. I thought that maybe making a little video briefing would be the simplest thing to support engagement and understanding of the piece of work that we did around the serious violence duty. To introduce myself to those who don't know me, I'm Adam Muirhead. I'm Director of Youth Work, a local charity, the Trust for Developing Communities. I'm also an elected voluntary sector rep for the theme of children and young people. And we have been involved with the Violence Reduction Partnership in the city since it was set up several years ago. And as some more context for this project, we were all part of the implementation of the Serious Violence Duty, which is a new piece of legislation introduced at the end of 2022. So it's relatively new. And it stated that each area must have a strategy for violence reduction. It must have a data dashboard to understand the context and how things might be changing. It must have regular meetings of strategic people to ensure that traction's being made around violence reduction in the city. And because we already had a violence reduction partnership, we'd already had lots of those things in place. And so the resource that came along with the serious violence duty was able to be given over in its entirety to the other activity that was in the serious violence duty that was highlighted around youth engagement. And I think we were really keen to make sure that all of our activity around the violence reduction had youth voice in it, and we've been doing bits and pieces of work that were, for instance, podcasting, kind of audio documentary, we called it, with young men from Moulscombe who talked about their lives and growing up and on the estate, and they talked about violence and harm and family and school and safety and being a man and things like that. And we thought that was a really nice piece of work that had leveraged the trust that we built over several years with young people so that they could be candid, and provided us with something really profound, actually. And I'd encourage everyone to go and look up Young Ends, was the name of the thing. It's on the TDC website. And we'd done other bits and pieces of voice work. We'd done some podcasting where young people had interviewed different police officers and asked them awkward questions that young people want to know. But each time we'd come with the work that we'd produced and sort of said, well, this is some really interesting youth voice. What should we do with it? And we were kind of regularly met with, it's nice and it's it's interesting, and but so what? Like what are we going to do with it? And I guess I didn't really have the answers because we were speaking into a big broad system of multiple agencies. And so when the serious violence duty opportunity came along to do some more kind of profound engagement work, what we wanted to do was develop something that was more systemic. And so the first thing that we did was we went out to employ a young person to help us as someone who could be alongside us in the process and develop and co-produce the whole project. And we ended up recruiting 3 young people because we interviewed them and they were awesome. The serious violence duty applies to statutory bodies, and so that we knew we wanted to engage them all. And initially we had an idea about young people leading training for various people within statutory agencies working in the city. The first thing that we did was to develop a survey and ask that different organisations went through that survey and contributed their work around youth participation, youth violence agenda. And it sort of turned into a bit of an audit, which was really, really useful to understand what was present and where people were struggling, those sorts of things. The partners involved were Probation Service, Sussex Police, East Sussex Fire and Rescue, NHS Sussex, and the local authority in terms of the participation team. And we had really good engagement from the adolescent services as well. So multiple partners providing us with lots of information, we then invited them in and had conversations with them about what they'd submitted in the surveys. Young people were able to speak directly to some of the people in positions in these statutory services and understand what was good and what was bad, or challenging rather. And then we compiled a report for each organisation that said, you're doing brilliantly at this, and this is where you've said that you might be struggling. We then decided that we'd bring all of those organisations together and do an event, a conference, with lots of workshopping and some input and some thinking. And so we did that on the 2nd of May this year. Young people designed the event, they constructed the workshops, they planned the whole thing, and there were workshops around each of the areas that people were finding challenging, and so everyone kind of came together and supported each other to think through those issues. We also delivered some input around a prominent model of youth participation, certainly in the youth work world, but it's gaining prominence in health and other areas too, based on the work of Laura Lundy. So it's known as the Lundy model, and it talks about 4 elements that must be there in order for us to be meeting children's rights. From the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, Article 12 in particular talks about us, the children have a right to be heard about issues that affect them. So the 4 elements were space, in terms of creating inclusive, respectful spaces that empower young people. The second one is voice, valuing and amplifying young people's voices, and critically giving them enough insight into an issue so that they can make an informed decision. Their voice carries a lot more weight and profundity. The third one is about audience, and making sure that the correct audience is hearing all of this activity that's being produced and the insight that's being delivered by young people. And the fourth one is influence, and influence is about the change that it actually makes. Because if we just hear voices and do nothing again and again and again, then we systematically disempower young people. So a lot of lovely voice work has happened. But in fact, if it doesn't change anything, or we don't feed back to young people directly and say, you said we did, then we can have the opposite effect, actually. It can be quite damaging. So we looked at all of this together, and we found lots of strengths and opportunities. Really, really positive event. Everyone seemed to enjoy themselves. The young people took a lead in terms of comparing and delivering. And we actually, at the end of it, developed some principles for youth participation to be embedded in our organisations, was the aspiration. So one of them was about curiosity, and we promised to act with professional curiosity, listening actively, asking questions, seeking to understand where we can improve. The second was commitment. We commit to genuine participation, being anti-tokenistic and ensuring children and young people's involvement leads to change. The third was transparency. We will be transparent, communicating openly and honestly with children and young people about the limitations of influence and change to help build trust. The fourth was inclusion. We promised to foster participation for all, ensuring diverse perspectives are welcomed, championed and heard. And the last was courage and authenticity. We will be brave and authentic, speaking openly, taking risks and staying true to our shared purpose. So we're really proud of the work that was done on the day. We're really proud of the event. And for anyone asking, so what, around this particular piece of work, we asked that organisations take these principles back and formally adopt them. So we know that our partners in the NHS are considering it, and Brighton Division of Sussex Police have signed it off. We're very grateful to them for progressing that as quickly as they have. We have taken the principles to the Adolescent Partnership Board, and we are doing some work around that and embedding youth voice more systematically in that process, which is really exciting for us. And based on the work that we've done across all of these statutory services and across systems and using these principles, we were able to apply successfully to become a city of youth social action recognised by the government's I Will movement. So we're really pleased to have answered the question about so what. there are still questions hanging around about how exactly this manifests reductions in violence, and I'm happy to answer that young people who feel that they belong and that they matter have built-in protective factors around them. Our services are more responsive when we're able to hear young people effectively and make the changes that are required. We give young people the skills that help them see their agency and systems. And aside from that, it is just their right. So we're really pleased that we've been able to do this work. I'm able to share the report with you. We'd love for you to have a look and think about that and ask us any questions you might have about how you may be able to adopt the principles if you feel that would be supportive. I've spoken enough. I'll leave you to the rest of your meeting. Thank you.